to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 more horror movies that I highly recommend. And with that, let's get to the list. The Gorge is a 2025 dark romantic sci-fi horror movie. Directed by Scott Derrickson, it stars Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sigourney Weaver. Two highly trained operatives become close after being sent to protect opposite sides of a mysterious gorge. But when evil emerges, they must work together to survive what lies within.
So what's the mission? To keep people from going in the gorge?
No. You need to stop what's in the gorge from coming out.
I've been really looking forward to this one ever since I first heard about it late last year. But unfortunately, when I found out it wasn't going to go to theaters, that definitely disappointed me some, because I was thinking it was going to be, the cast and the idea of it, I thought it would just be on a higher level than it is, at least treated that way. Now, after seeing it, I do get why they didn't put it in theaters. I don't agree with it, because I still think this would have been fun to see in theaters. But it's not a perfect movie. There are some pacing issues. There are things here and there that just don't make a lot of sense. There are, a few holes. I mean, it's definitely one that you got to suspend disbelief. Like, there's a lot that you have to kind of buy into, a lot of conveniences and things like that. But with that being said, this is a very fun movie, and the cast is a lot of what makes this so entertaining, because their romantic connection, their chemistry is so fun and enjoyable. And then on top of that, there's a lot of badass evil in this and a lot of fight scenes, a lot more action than I expected. It's also more sci-fi-ish than I was expecting too. But don't get me wrong, there's definitely a lot of horrific imagery and a real horror flavor to this as well. But I think it has a nice balance between this romantic fantasy adventure and this horror sci-fi action movie. It has a nice balance of those two different worlds that kind of collide here. So is it a perfect movie? No, but I do think The Gorge is a great time and definitely worth checking out on Apple TV.
Chris! Cyber! Where are you?
Last Breath is a 2025 survival thriller. Directed by Alex Parkinson, it stars Woody Harrelson, Simu Liu, and Finn Cole. It's a true story that follows a group of deep-sea divers as they battle the elements to rescue their crewmate trapped hundreds of feet below the ocean's surface.
Your umbilical, it's gonna snap. I will come back for you, but you have to get yourself back to the top. I can't rescue you if I can't find you. Understand?
Just make sure I'm alive.
So I just got done seeing this at an advanced screening, but it's not quite out yet, but by the time you guys are seeing this, it'll be available in theaters. And I was just blown away because it's a story that I'm pretty familiar with. I mean, I knew most of the things that went on here, but it's a whole nother story experiencing this in a theater in front of a big screen. I mean, I've talked about this before, but the scariest things to me, the things that actually do scare me, are the real elements of being out of your element, like being in space or being under the ocean, where we don't have all the answers. There's a lot we still don't know. There's things that could exist that we still don't know about, and there's things we do know exist that could still kill you. And beyond all that, in this case, being so far down on the bottom of the ocean, there's so many different elements to do with breathing and pressures, and there's just so many things that make it a terrifying place that man is just not meant to be. And so I'm not trying to say that this movie is exactly a horror movie, but I found it to be scary and horrific and had me on the edge of my seat from beginning to the very end. And even after the movie was over, there's some text that goes on the screen because it is a true story, and it kind of tells you, where this character is now and what happened after this and blah, blah, blah. And there's one line in it that I don't want to mention because it will be a spoiler. And I do recommend going into this as blind as you can. Like, if you don't know the outcome and what exactly happens in this story, I think it'll impact you more and you'll have more fun with it. But there was just one line about what happened after all of this was over, like on this text, that I feel like the rest of the theater around me didn't really register because they were kind of getting up and grabbing their trash and whatever. But it just blew me away. I couldn't believe what I just read. Either way, I think this movie's amazing. The whole cast is great because Woody Harrelson is really the only big name. I mean, Simu Liu has definitely made a name for himself with other things that he's done, but Woody Harrelson is like the big star that they're, promoting this movie with. But it really is the rest of the cast that I thought were just so impressive and what really make this movie work. That's not to say Woody Harrelson didn't do a great job. He did, but it's just he plays more of this father figure and doesn't really get to do a lot of the action and a lot of the stuff that's the kind of meat of the movie. Like, the majority of the movie is other people doing things. But they did such a great job of capturing the ocean floor and what it would feel like to be in that pitch black darkness. And so I think it's one that if you do end up watching this at home, definitely get your room black, dark, big TV, because I think the theater or that experience, you got to have that blackout, really being able to see what's going on and just feeling immersed by this to get the full impact of what a movie like this is. But if you are looking for something to go see this weekend, it's a great pick. There's a lot of good ones out there right now. So I'm not saying to see this over maybe some of the others like Monkey or whatever, but if this is the kind of thing you're in the mood for, a thriller, something that feels hyper real, I think Last Breath is a really, really good pick.
What happens if Jerry gets mad?
Sphere is a 1998 sci-fi psychological horror movie, directed and produced by Barry Levinson. It stars Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, and Samuel L. Jackson. A spaceship is discovered under 300 years worth of coral growth at the bottom of the ocean.
Hey guys, I'm getting a reading on the sonar. You're not alone out there.
This is one that always surprises me that I don't hear talked about more. I don't get it, especially because there is such a big cult following for the Event Horizon, which I love. I'm a huge fan of that movie. It was on my top 10 horror movies ever list that I did recently. I mean, I just think that's a fantastic movie, but I think there's a lot of the same things that made that great in this movie, and they came out around the same time. This is a fantastic cast, and they all do a great job in it. I just don't understand why this movie hasn't gotten more love over the years. But I also think a big part of the problem is it's not available streaming anywhere, and it hasn't been. I don't know when the last time it was, because since I've started this channel, I've never seen it streaming on any of the platforms unless you rent it. And that's a real shame, because I think there's a huge audience out there that have just never seen this. And I think if more people were to see this, like if this were to drop on Netflix, I could definitely see all of a sudden it getting a new life and starting to grow momentum towards that cult following that I think it deserves. But it's so creepy and demented and eerie. And like I said, there is definitely a similar thing to that evil kind of feeling you get from Event Horizon. Now, I won't say it goes to that same level, but I do think there's still a lot of that there, and it gets very disturbing, very uncomfortable, and the cast is just fantastic in this. I mean, Dustin Hoffman and everything he's in, he just gives it everything he's got. But then you also have Sharon Stone killing it here, and Samuel L. Jackson, who is just a blast in this movie. So if you've never seen this, or if it's been a while, I think Sphere is a fantastic movie that's definitely worth renting for a few bucks.
I am not my heart.
What the hell happened here?
Dead Birds is a 2004 Western horror movie. Directed by Alex Turner, it stars Henry Thomas, Nikki Acox, Patrick Fugit, and Michael Shannon. A group of Confederate soldiers hole up in an abandoned plantation after robbing a bank and now find themselves at the mercy of supernatural forces.
Hey, come look at this.
What the hell is that?
Looks like a wild boar or something.
This is such a wild movie, and one that I hadn't seen for the longest time until you guys told me about it, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and I finally saw it and I was just blown away because, yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect, but there's a lot here. This movie is cool. It's creative. It's interesting. It has cool visuals. The story is a lot darker and more twisted than I thought it was going to be as well. And it goes in some wild directions with a lot of surprises along the way. It also has a phenomenal cast that all do a great job in this and keep you invested and engaged the entire time. And it does something that I really appreciate where you take these villains, these people that are not good guys, and from the jump, you find out quickly, these are not good guys. And yet it makes it to where, as the story goes, you do start to see the humanity in some of them, and you are finding yourself rooting for them, but at the same time, these are still bad people that deserve, whatever they get. And so it's this really interesting kind of dichotomy that you find yourself in when you're rooting for them, but you know they're bad, and yet when something maybe does happen to certain characters, you're like, I was rooting for them, but at the same time, they kind of did deserve that. So it's a real fun, interesting way of telling a story. But I think Dead Birds is a great movie, especially if you're a fan of Western horror movies. So if you've yet to see this, I think it's a fantastic pick.
I now completely like other people.
Heretic is a 2024 psychological horror movie, written and directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. It stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the home of a strange man.
I won't keep you if you wish to leave, but I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
What does this have to do with us leaving?
Everything.
So Heretic is absolutely one of my favorite movies from last year. It was in my top 10. I just think it's so good. And I've talked about it numerous times over the last couple months on this channel. And so the main reason I'm talking about it here is just because it's going to be available to stream on Max on the 7th. So in a week or so from the time of me recording this. But this is a brilliantly written movie. I do think it had the best script, the best writing of anything last year. It's imaginative. It makes you think. It's creative. It did a great job of balancing it from different points of view, because if you are a very religious person, you could look at this movie and see it in one way and one outcome, or if you are an agnostic or an atheist or whatever, you could see it from your point of view and see it in your own way. But I think there is something you could gather from this regardless of your point of view, because it's a really fun cat and mouse like mystery where you're trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out if there's supernatural elements here or what exactly is at the bottom of this journey, so to speak, that you go down. But it's also incredibly well shot, directed, the cinematography is fantastic, and the cast is just great in this. Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East are wonderful, but Hugh Grant, I think, kind of steals the show because he is just so charismatic and interesting. He is just his dialect, the way he talks, his mannerisms, it's all entertaining. I think this is a real gem, and if you have yet to see this, do yourself a favor and watch Heretic when it drops on Max.
Right where he wants us, all of us.
You have to tell me. What happens to me?
Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon is a 2006 mockumentary slasher. Directed by Scott Glosserman, it stars Nathan Bissell, Angela Goethals, and Robert Englund. The story's about the next great horror slasher who is given a documentary crew exclusive access to his life as he plans his reign of terror over the sleepy town of Glen Echo.
Everybody thinks we just wake up one morning and start obsessing about a girl and start stalking her, killing everybody that gets in the way.
That does seem to happen a lot with you guys.
This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I even struggled to not put it in my top 10. Like, I just adore this movie, and it does have a cult following, but it's a real shame that it isn't more well known, and a crime that it never got a sequel. This movie was perfectly designed to get a sequel. It was set up so well to make this meta Scream-esque universe, but with a different way of looking at things, because in this universe, slashers are real. Freddy, Jason, Michael, like, they're real entities in this universe out there doing these kills, and they're famous at being that. And this guy is planning on being the next great iconic slasher. And so there's a lot of humor in it, showing you the day by day of what it would be like to be a Michael or a Jason or a Freddy. But don't get it twisted. This movie is still a slasher. It gets gory, it gets violent. I mean, there is definitely a slasher movie in here. It's just a unique perspective and way that it's put together. It's not like anything else that's been done really before this or after it. It just has a lot of its own flavor and style. So unfortunately, at the time of recording this, Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon is not available streaming for free, but it is only a few bucks, and I think it's absolutely worth the rental.
Come on, you son of a bitch!
Crawl is a 2019 creature feature horror movie. Directed by Alexandra Aja, it stars Kaya Scodelario and Barry Pepper. The story's about a daughter and father who find themselves trapped in the crawl space of their home and preyed upon by alligators during a Category 5 hurricane in Florida. This is one of my favorite creature features of the last 10 years. It really gets that balance right, because you see a lot of these movies where it puts you in a hyper real situation and it's, you know, thrilling and all that, but there isn't a ton of fun to it. It just kind of feels like, you know, traumatic, and those are still interesting. Those are entertaining. I'm not saying that they're not. But I don't think that they have the fun in them that I'm sometimes wanting, especially when it's a creature feature type of one. And this one is incredibly fun. It has enough camp to it, enough over-the-top elements, the way that it looks, the way it's shot. I mean, these alligators are hyper real, hyper aggressive, like everything is a little bit beyond reality. So it has that entertainment value to it. But it's exciting and intense and definitely a nail biter. So if you have yet to see Crawl and you're a fan of creature features, this is one that I highly recommend.
I now completely like other people.
This is my house. Being cooped up with a newborn and a mother-in-law can drive anyone crazy.
The Front Room is a 2024 psychological horror movie, written and directed by the Eggers brothers in their feature film debut. It stars Brandy, Catherine Hunter, and Andrew Burnap. It tells the story of a newly pregnant couple who are forced to take in an ailing, estranged stepmother.
I realize I do not know my granddaughter's name.
We're gonna name her Fern.
Not a plant you got growing in there? No.
Okay, so you gotta hear me out. I in no way am saying that this is a great movie. I'm not saying I'm highly recommending it because of how good it is. However, there are times, and this is one of those cases, where I'm highly recommending it for mainly one element. And in this movie, it's the stepmother, Catherine Hunter. This woman is incredible in this movie. She is so off-putting, so obnoxious, so over the top and evil and demented and twisted and bizarre that it's just a blast to watch her. But unfortunately, the rest of this movie kind of fell flat. It definitely feels like a movie made by first-time filmmakers, because it's kind of clunky in times. The dialogue doesn't always work. The pacing doesn't work. There's a lot of holes in the plot that don't exactly make sense. And where you ultimately end up is a little bit, I don't know, confusing, and it's just not a fantastic movie. I'm not saying it's a bad movie though. It's still entertaining enough and well done enough. It looks great. I mean, that's the main thing that is really high level in this is the way it's shot, the set design, the meticulous attention to detail when it comes to the set and the costumes, and just everything visually is fantastic. I also think the whole cast does a good job. The main issues I have, like I said, are more of writing and directing and editing issues. Things just don't quite click. It just doesn't have that oomph that it needed. But I do think if you have Max right now, it's definitely worth giving The Front Room a look, because it's entertaining enough, even if it's just for the stepmother, because the lengths she goes to drive Brandy's character crazy is just amazing. Like I said, don't go into this expecting a great movie. Don't go into this picking it apart, because I guarantee you'll have issues with it. But if you just go in, grab your popcorn and have a good time, I think you'll have some fun with this.
If you displease the right people, the world closes in on you very, very fast.
Nightmare Alley is a 2021 neo-noir thriller. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, it's a remake of the 1947 film of the same name, and stars Bradley Cooper, Rooney Mara, Willem Dafoe, and Cate Blanchett. A grifter working his way up from low-ranking carnival worker to lauded psychic medium matches wits with a psychologist trying to expose him.
Are you a true medium?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Carla.
Doctor, how about that?
Please lay down.
This movie is a visual feast. That is the main reason I feel like this is worth seeing. Now, it's well done in every other way. It's Guillermo del Toro here. Of course, the movie is fantastically put together. But just the costume choices, the set design, the way it's shot, everything is so colorful and rich and dynamic. But if you're like me and you're not familiar with this story, because like I said, it is a remake, but if you go into it blind like I did, the story is very dark and twisted and fucked up, a lot more than you'll expect it to be. But is this a horror movie? No, I'm not saying that it is. It's definitely in that thriller camp. But because it's Guillermo del Toro and because of how dark and disturbing it gets at times, I think it's close enough that it deserves to be talked about in the horror world. On top of that, it's a movie that just kind of came and went. I mean, I remember when it was coming out and there was some buzz because it's Guillermo del Toro, but for the most part, it just kind of was in theaters, talked about a tiny bit, and then just disappeared. And that's a real shame, because this version of Nightmare Alley, the remake, this modern version, it's really a good movie, and if you look at the cast alone, it's worth seeing. I mean, Cate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Bradley Cooper. I mean, it's really a stacked lineup that all give incredible performances here. So if this is one that for whatever reason you have yet to check out, I think you definitely should give it a look.
Silver Bullet, the last glimmering hope.
Silver Bullet is a 1985 horror movie. Directed by Dan Attias, it's based on the 1983 Stephen King novella Cycle of the Werewolf, and stars Gary Busey, Corey Haim, and Everett McGill. In a small town, brutal killings start to plague the close-knit community, and Marty, a paraplegic boy, is convinced that the murders are from a werewolf.
Under the fog. What are you saying? It's right here with us.
It's been a while since I've seen Silver Bullet streaming anywhere for free. And so when I saw that it was going to be on Tubi, I got excited and I was like, I got to talk about this movie because it's one of my absolute favorite werewolf movies ever. It's one of the few that really gets it right from beginning to end, especially in that Goonies from a younger boy's type of perspective and angle. And so it's got this real adventurous quality without forgetting that it's also a horror movie. It gets gory, it gets graphic, it's intense and scary, but yet, like I said, it has that adventurous youth angle to it as well, so it's nostalgic and just fun to watch. And this has definitely got to be one of my favorite Corey Haim performances. I really like the character that he plays in this because he's in this wheelchair, and so you would think of him as if not being able to do things and this and that, but the whole movie is his will is what is so strong. And it's something I can somewhat relate to because as a boy, I had the chips stacked against me in a lot of ways. I won't go into all of them, but I have my own medical issues and things, and yet I still wanted to do things. I still wanted to play sports, still wanted to be one of the guys, you know, wanted friends and roughhouse and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't get to for various reasons. And so I just really can kind of see myself in this character because I never stopped pushing forward, never stopped trying to do the things I wanted to do. And I haven't always been able to accomplish everything I've wanted to, but I've done a lot more and accomplished a lot more, I think, than a lot of people might have thought I would. And so just that iron will, hard-headedness, and adventurousness that this boy has, this character has, really makes this movie work for me. But I just think it's a fun classic and an absolutely perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies on this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! And I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member and help support the channel that way by clicking on that join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 10 more horror movies that I highly recommend. And I'll see you guys next time.